Good evening, everyone. This is the City Council Urban Affairs Committee meeting. We are meeting today, Thursday, November 19th. We have two items on our agenda. The first item is order number 20-100-7995B, an application for a special permit for WB Marlborough, Massachusetts owner, LLC, Wayside Residential, 339 Boston Post Road East, to construct a multifamily dwelling residential project. Second item on our agenda is order number 1820-100-7318G, an application for modification of a special permit from attorney Brian Falk on behalf of Garden Remedies Incorporated to amend condition number 8 relative to the hours of operation for the medical and adult use marijuana retail establishment located at 416 Boston Post Road East. Both of these are being held under the virtual meeting. No public attendance is being permitted. These are being televised on WMCT-TV, or you can view the meeting using the link under the meeting videos tab on the city website. Because some of us are participating in this meeting virtually, I will do a roll call and all votes of the committee will be by roll call. We do have some members in chambers and some are doing this virtually. Councillor Landers. Councillor Landers is in attendance in chambers. Councillor Doucette?
Councillor Doucette is present in chambers.
Councillor Navin?
Councillor Navin is present.
Councillor Wagner?
Councillor Wagner is present.
And Councillor Roby is present on video. We also have Councillor Ossing in chambers, and I am not sure, I don't think there were any others in chambers when this meeting had started. We are going to start the meeting this evening with the second item that was on the agenda, the modification of a special permit from attorney Brian Falk on behalf of Garden Remedies. So Mr. Falk, if you have anything you would like to say to start us off,
sure.
Please proceed.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. And please, anyone, if I can't be heard, just give a wave and let me know. My bandwidth has been pretty good today, but you never know. So this is fairly straightforward. We just had our public hearing on Monday, and I appreciate the committee taking us up so quickly after our public hearing. Quite simply, we're looking to increase our hours of operation by 3 hours each day. Monday through Saturday, it would go from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. to 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So 3 hours each day. These hours are not far off from or shorter than some of the hours for alcohol retailers nearby, package stores. You should have a draft decision in front of you, which I submitted on Tuesday morning. It's very simple, just simply my permit. Eliminating that condition and then replacing it with a new condition with the expanded hours that we were seeking.
Thank you. For the committee and the public's information, I will go through. We did receive comments from department heads, from Jeffrey Cook from the building department. He has no comments on the extended operating hours. From John Garside from the Board of Health. Board of Health has no objections. Applicant should be reminded that the retail sale of adult use cannabis is currently prohibited after 9:30 p.m. in accordance with Governor Baker's COVID-19 order number 53. The police department, Chief Georgie, the police department does not have any objection to granting an extension of business hours for Garden Remedies. From police fire chief, Kevin Breen at Marlborough Fire Department, we do not have an issue with Garden Remedies request seeking to extend their hours of operation. My fingers aren't working. From engineering, Tom DePercio, engineering division has no comments to offer on this request. And is that a repeat from, oh, I'm sorry, the very first one was not from Commissioner Cook, it was from Priscilla Ryder, but we do also have from Jeffrey Cook that the building department has no objection or comments regarding garden remedies. So those were all of the department head comments. I know Mr. Falk, you had asked for those in advance, but I just want everybody else to know. So we do have, as you stated, the request to amend the application. It is a decision that we would vote on. It is pretty simple. It has all of the information that we need, and it's basically in the area where it says it takes the following actions. In number E, the City Council pursuant to its authority under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, and the zoning ordinance of the City of Marlborough hereby grants the applicant an amendment to modify condition number 8 of the original special permit as follows. Number 1, by deleting condition number 8 in its entirety and inserting in its place the following. Hours. The maximum hours of operation of the use shall be Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. All other conditions of the original special permit shall continue in full force and effect and are incorporated by reference as part of this decision. So at this point, I will open this up for comments from voting members of the committee, and if there are none from them, then to other committee members.
Chairman Rhodey, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman. So I see this as, I don't see as much of an issue with changing the hours as much as more of a give and take in negotiations with the business. This is about, prohibition and rolling back prohibition and understanding what the conditions of that is when it relates to marijuana. I did get a chance to stop at the dispensary before I came in today. I did note a couple of things. First is that there is some smoking paraphernalia for sale, vape shoppish types things. I wasn't sure if that was actually included in the original agreement, so I didn't get a chance to look into that, but I'd like to get that straightened out. Also, at the public hearing, we talked about addiction material, and the doctor said that there was material available at Garden Remedies. I couldn't find any. So I think it's important, as getting away from prohibition is one thing, but acknowledging that there are addiction issues with these types of drugs, I think is an important aspect of that. So I'd really do like to see and figure out how we can include in this, to make sure that there is some addiction material for, or something, from organizations such as Marijuana Anonymous, not necessarily privately, done by Garden Remedies, but by organizations that are there to address addiction. So I would like to see those two conditions or clarification of the first one and make sure that the second one gets included as part of this
I can
change.
comment, and then maybe the applicant can confirm on the addiction part, but for the materials, it's very specific in their permit, which is pretty similar to what's been other permits. The applicant shall not make available for sale any of the use, shall not make available for sale as part of the use any materials or items unrelated to the purposes of registration. So I would assume that anything that they have that would help someone buying the marijuana product to smoke would be included in something they can sell. What they cannot sell, I believe, would be other cigarettes. It says without limitation, tobacco products, clove cigarettes or e-cigarettes. So they can sell paraphernalia that enables their customers to use their product.
Okay.
There is currently nothing specific in the special permit regarding them having material on addiction. If they want to have it, I'm sure that's a wonderful thing that they're doing, but maybe Dr. Munkesi can speak on that part.
Yes, I believe that we do have those materials. They must have all been picked up and taken out of the dispensary. So I'm going to ask my COO, who's on this at this meeting, Jeffrey Harold, to make certain that tomorrow we're restocked and that there are materials there on the dangers of addiction.
I appreciate that. May I continue, Councilor, Chairman Ruby?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So I see this as a condition to make sure this material is included. And this is probably one of the few things that we can actually add as counselors to this. I don't think it should be the decision of the dispensary. I think that as I learned more with this from the first one, I mean, this is you guys were the first one, and God bless you for going through all we did. But I think that this is something that needs to be included within the permit. I think working with you going forward is good. But I think we need to put this in now while we still have a chance.
So I would, because it's not something that was part of the original amendment and it was not part of the discussion, I would guess you could still move to amend. I know I am not in favor of that amendment to this. I don't see anything in the rules set up by the legislature regarding marijuana for any other dispensary to have to do this. I think the fact that they are doing it is a good thing. I know that they are supposed to have an impact fee and they're supposed to be paying us to provide information, and the community impact fee. The fact that they are providing information to me should be sufficient, but that's just my own personal opinion. So I will, if you have any further comments to make, Councilor Doucette, if not, I can open up your comments to everybody else.
I'll open the comments to everyone else and consider it on the table to be a motion to change, to add.
All right. Other voting members, comments on Councilor Doucette's suggestion?
This is Councilor Wagner.
Councilor Wagner.
I don't have any further comments to make regarding Councilor Doucette's comments, and I just wanted to say that I have no concerns with the extended hours and spoke to my constituents, and there were no concerns expressed.
Councilor Roby? Chairman Roby?
Yes, is that Councilor Ossing?
It is Chairman Roby. So I have concerns with what Councilor Doucette is presenting for a couple reasons. One, we don't make that an issue for alcohol sales. We don't make that an issue for tobacco sales. So making that a contingent one for marijuana sales, I believe, is specifically targeting something that is not fairly represented throughout other products that consumers use. I trust that if they want to put them out there, that's great, but it should not be a condition, just my opinion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Other members that I may not be able to see unless I see you doing a raise your hand, or members that are online, or only Councilor Wagner and I? Anybody in the chambers? No, I'm not seeing any hands raised or any other comments. All right. Councilor Doucette, do you want to make this a formal amendment with a vote on it? Yes, I do. Is there a second on the amendment?
Anyone second?
Madam Chair, Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers.
I'm seconding it, only that will enable us to bring it up and then vote on it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we add an amendment. Do you want to word your amendment, Councilor Doucette? Because I want to make sure it's clear.
That the dispensary provides addiction-related material to the public who have access to the dispensary. If I think that's if put in proper legal form, we'd have to send it through legal department.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that a condition be added that the dispensary provide addiction-related material to the public who have access to the dispensary. Is there a second on the amendment?
Anyone second?
Councilor Landers. 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 Councilor Land Is there further discussion on the amendment?
Madam Chair?
Counselor Landers, is that you?
Yes, I think the doctor made it very clear, and I think the COO, that is his responsibility. He's gonna check on it first thing in the morning, and I'll bet you, Counselor, next time you go in there, there'll be plenty of material right where you want it to be. So that's my comment on that.
Is there any further comment? Hearing none, I'm going to do a roll call vote on the amendment to add an additional condition stating the dispensary provide addiction-related material to the public. Councilor Wagner.
Council Wagner votes no.
Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin votes no.
Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette votes yes.
Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers votes no.
And Councilor Roby votes no. So the vote does not carry, which brings us back to the original amendment to number 8, as stated. Is there further discussion on that?
Madam Chair, we're back to the, Councilor Landers, we're back to the hours of operation?
Correct.
Yes, I would support the additional hours. I guess I base most of my positive feeling on all the department heads, and particularly the chief of police, had no objection to it. So if the department heads and the authorities have no objection to it, I certainly don't. So I would support that amendment, Councilor Chair.
Is there a motion by anybody?
Madam Chair? Councilor Navin?
Councilor Navin?
Motion to approve.
It's been moved and seconded by Councilor Navin to approve the special permit as amended to delete condition number 8 and insert the new language. Is there further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, again, I will do a roll call vote. Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette votes yes.
Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin votes yes.
Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers votes yes.
Councilor Wagner.
Councilor Wagner votes yes.
And Councilor Roby votes yes. That is 5-0. The recommendation of the committee is to approve. This will be reported out at the next council meeting. Is there a desire to have this suspended to vote on that night, or are you comfortable letting it lie on the table and then it would be approved at the following meeting? Councilor Wagner?
Madam Chair, I would encourage it to be taken up as quickly as possible. I think our businesses have been really struggling under COVID. It's already been a fair amount of time. I think this is a minimal extension of hours that could help our business, and I would like to support local business. So suspension and voting at the next meeting would be my preference.
All right. We can make sure that this is approved by our legal department, that it is in proper legal form. It looks pretty okay by my checking it over, but I'm sure that there are always issues that need to be double checked. But we will suspend the rules and see what happens.
Point of
if
order,
there
Madam
is
Chair? Point of order,
I'm sorry,
Madam Chair? It's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
Just as a formality, should we be voting actually on the suspension of the rules?
You do not need to necessarily vote on it. It would be up to the full the full council. If they want to grant it, I can ask for it.
Okay.
Chairman Roby, Councilor Oram.
Councilor Oram.
I would be in support of it at the council meeting. What the committee wishes to do here is the committee's decision, but I would be in favor of supporting the suspension, as Councilor Wagner said. If anything, let's try to help out our businesses. And we have suspended other items for other businesses, so I don't see an issue. And I'll be in favor of that if it shows up on the council floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Oram. Is there any other discussion on this particular matter? If not, I think we'll take a couple-minute recess to allow the participants in this to go offline and get ready for the next part. Thank you very much, Dr. McCasey and employees.
Thank you for supporting our business. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Again, if you have any trouble, please give away.
Brian, I'm sorry, you're having problems. You keep going in. I know earlier at a meeting you were at, was the same thing was happening.
Okay, is it better now? I've gotten a little.
It is.
Okay.
It's much better for me.
Thank you very much. Just give a wave if you can't hear me again. If we just bring the PowerPoint up, I don't know if that's handy. Great, thank you. So for the record, Brian Falk, Myrick O'Connell appearing on behalf of the applicant. As we promised last time, we're before you tonight with revised plans. You should all have copies of our updated concept plan, which we submitted last week. We've heard concerns from the council and from members of the public about the project. I think you'll find that our updated plans do not just pay lip service to addressing those concerns. We've scaled back the project by 25%, dropping the unit count from 188 to 140 by eliminating one of the 4 buildings and cutting back the satellite parking lot down the street. We go to slide 2. Great, thank you. So this is the last version of the project plans that were before the council. And this plan had already been modified based on feedback from the Conservation Commission, DBA, the Site Plan Committee, and public comments. Next slide, please. And here's our new concept plan.
Brian,
Yep.
if you move closer maybe to the mic, you're
Sure.
breaking up on me. Thank you.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Sorry about that. So this is our new concept plan, overall 25% reduction. And this hits on 4 key concerns that we've heard. Number 1, density. Internally about ways to scale the project back from eliminating the floor on a building, just enough units to drop the satellite parking lot. But we didn't think that would be enough to truly address what we've heard. With the 48 unit reduction, the project loses 1 entire building and has less impervious area overall. Number 2, transportation and carbon emissions. 48 fewer units means 96 fewer parking spaces and far fewer vehicles on the site. Third, visual impacts along Route 20. We've more than doubled the setback of the frontmost buildings from 50 feet to 120 feet. And this is while retaining the 50-foot strip of quality landscaping all along the roadway. You'll note that of the 2 frontmost buildings, one of them now has its narrow side facing the street, which further reduces the bulking effect that you might have seen along Route 20. As a comparison, many of the existing apartment buildings and condo buildings along Route 20 East are right up at that 50-foot setback mark. Some of them are even closer. Certainly even further back, and we've more than doubled the allowable setback. Fourth was site access. We had already modified the driveways to align better with the villages across the street. The modified plans provide longer driveways on both sides, which reduces the potential conflict and parking spaces within the site. So there are many other positive aspects of the concept plan. 80% of the overall site will remain as green or open space. We're still providing 15% of the units as affordable, a total of 21. I know that's important to the city. These changes also pull the project and reduce our impact on the riverfront area, while still providing additional stormwater capacity. The project will still constitute an improvement in floodplain issues versus the current situation at the site. Next slide, please. This is an initial rendering of the new site layout. As you can see, we pushed things back from the roadway quite a bit and reduced the number of units that are looking out onto the road. We're still providing the same level of resident amenities and the high-end finishes of the Walcott model. Next slide. The fiscal benefits to the project, to the city remain. Units will be 96 one-bedroom and 44 two-bed. Because of that mix and our tenant draw from this model, we will have few school-age children, likely 12 or fewer. And we estimate positive net revenues to the city of $400,000 per year. That's more than 3 times the estimated net value to the city of an as-of-right retail use. And as we've discussed before, the city council would have no say over an as-of-right retail use, which would only require site plan review. We could go back to the third slide. I'd just like to turn things over now to our engineering firm, Allen & Major, just to briefly walk you through the new layout. And then I'm going to ask Tom Moran of Waypoint to speak to the company's overall approach to the new plan. Dave or Carlton, can you speak?
Yeah. Hi, this is Dave Robinson with Allen & Major Associates. Basically, the new layout, as Brian mentioned, reduces the overall footprint by about 25% with the reduction from building from 4 to 3. It's 140 units. It's within the previous footprint of the previous development. So it does have less impacts to resource areas. Overall impervious will go down. There's still a very dense landscaping strip at the front of the property. And basically it's an overall improvement and a smaller development footprint versus the previous versions. And this also does not alter the floodplain area as was previous.
Tom Moran, can you hop on?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brian. And, when we had our public hearing back in July, a couple things we wanted to, mention and point out is that we look forward to a long-term partnership with the city, and also, highlighted the fact that this project is one that's been shaped largely by commentary received through the public process. And this new site plan is really just a continuation of those two things. We put a lot of thought into the feedback we have received over the past few weeks and are, excited about where we ended up. We think not only does it account for those comments received, but we also wanted to improve upon what we believe to be the original merits of the project. So one thing that Brian mentioned is that we now have more open space than we did previously. You have better view corridors. If you look at the orientation of the two buildings on the west side, you have a good view from Route 20 to the green space and back. So it really opens up the site as compared to what it was previously. And the things that we're happy to report did not change are the fact that we're still 100% electric. The quality isn't changing. The architecture is going to remain the same. The amenities, the interiors, all the renderings you saw at the first two presentations are going to look exactly the same. So again, we're happy with where we landed, and we look forward to your feedback. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Falk, do you have any other people presenting before we begin discussion?
We don't, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention in closing, I know the project poses a difficult decision for many in the city, given the history of the site. But the property is selling. The site's headed for development. We think this reduced plan is a good proposal for the site and far better than the as-of-right alternatives. And we're hoping you see this as a step in the right direction and something that you can work with us on, working towards an approval. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I know that as a committee, we haven't really had a whole lot of in-depth discussion on the actual special permit. So Attorney Falk was kind enough to send us a copy, both red-lined or technically blue-lined, and then a clean copy. So I'm going to just take a couple of minutes to go through and highlight the changes that are in the special permit. The very first one is in the findings of facts, which changes the specifics from 188 unit to 140, 4 buildings to 3, and 376 spaces to 280. Then we really get into the meat of the changes in the stormwater and erosion control management. There is an additional sentence as required by condition number 34 of the Conservation Commission's Order of Conditions for the Use. The applicant, its successors, and/or assigned shall hire an independent erosion control expert to oversee construction work at the site. And as we're on this part of it, Mr. Falk, if you would like to chime in, and I do see that we have the city engineer, it's my understanding this would not need to go back to conservation because there's no additional changes. It would go to site plan for their review, but it would not need to go to conservation. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, yes, because we have even less of an impact, and all the existing conditions are conditions we can comply with.
Okay, so continuing then with additions in number 8 on roadway improvements. It now states the applicant, its successors, and/or assigns shall coordinate with the city and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to ensure that development of the site does not conflict with planned improvements to Route 20 in the vicinity of the site. The final design and configuration of the site's access driveways shall incorporate the latest design of the planned Mass DOT improvements to Route 20 and shall be approved by both Mass DOT and the Engineering Division of the Department of Public Works. The applicant shall conduct a traffic signal warrant analysis to be submitted for review as part of the site plan review process. It does have us deleting number 9 that talked about the sidewalk that would have been installed on Route 20 if the work by the state was not completed. They would put the sidewalk that would connect the site to the extra parking. Then in addition to that, they have added a figure of $20,000 for the city to have city or its designee to be used by the city council to study and/or fund shared transportation options, but not including but not limited to a shuttle service to provide access between the site and its neighboring residential properties in downtown Marlborough. Under the open space, they are now adding in an amount of $20,000 to be the specific number for a payment to the city to be used by the city council or its designee to study and/or fund a recreational trail for pedestrians and cyclists along the city-owned sewer land adjacent to the site to provide public access to the restricted land and connections between Route 20 and the site's neighboring properties. They're adding a new condition, number 11, sewer pump station improvements. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant, its successors, and/or assigns shall provide a payment to the city's Department of Public Works or its designee not to exceed $35,000 to be used by the city for the installation of an inline sewage grinder at the Boston Post Road pump station in the vicinity of the site. And number 12, a new snow removal from driveways, parking areas, and sidewalks at the site may not be stored in a manner that creates a shortage of on-site parking for residents. If on-site snow storage creates a shortage of on-site parking for residents, the applicant, its successors, and/or assigns shall have stockpiled snow removed from the site. So I know as chairman of the committee, I just want to throw out, I think one of the things that we need to determine tonight is, in our minds, now that we have this new plan in front of us, we have some amendments to the special permit. Does this make us feel better? And I know for me, one of the things I think that will help in that is a next step that I see is that this goes to site plan with the formal official filing to them and then get new comments from the department heads, because I think what they have to say about this change will be very important to me as a voting member of the council, and I would assume would also be important to the rest of the committee. I know the amounts that have been put in here are something that the council can discuss. It's, to me, that's a negotiating piece. The amount of the sewer, I think input from the DPW will be very important to know if that's sufficient, if it's way too much, those kinds of things. So I'm going to open this up to committee members. If I get the sense that we're getting closer into this, then I think I would definitely ask for a time extension. I would recommend that we approve tonight a time extension because we don't know what the dates of the meetings will be, just till the last day of February. And then we could go from there if we need to have further. The applicant's been really good about giving us those extensions, and I'm sure that that would continue if we're making progress on making this happen. So that's one thing that I need to make sure that we have that in place tonight. If it looks like the consensus of the committee is that let's continue this discussion. So I'm going to open it up to voting committee members first.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Landers.
I'm surprised that I've had my hand up for quite a few minutes, that we get into that document so quickly. I'm not sure. Actually, they did a pretty good job, revamping things. But I don't know if there's some areas that we should be discussing. The renderings are pretty good. It makes the project look more appealing. And what I mean by that, I see more green space. What you people talk about is open space and green space would be 80%. I guess, I don't know, maybe it's Tom Warren's responsibility. There is what's the difference between green space and open space? See, what I kind of like your drawings here, Tom, it looks like you show more grass area. You get rid of a building. Unfortunately, you had to bring in the parking spaces somewhere, and I assume those are garages that go down the middle of the new parking place. Do you have any idea offhand how many garages you propose for this project?
Yes, we have
It's not important, but I was just curious.
Yeah, there's 5 garage bays, 7 garages total. We have 35 garage spaces.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, there's 5 garage buildings. Each has 7 bays, so we have 35 total garage spaces.
Oh.
All right, Councilor Landers, did you not receive a copy of the rather large conceptual development with both the current and the proposed?
Oh yeah, I received all that. I just have some questions I want to hear them talk about.
Those are shown on there.
So
just wanted to make sure you had a copy.
I counted them, and I thought that was far too few parking garages. I would think, with 140 units, I would think many people would probably, especially with New England weather, would like parking places. But getting back to the overall project, it looks much better because it looks like you have more grass area. But I was just curious, how do you people define the difference between open space and green space? I guess what I hate to see is, you know, a lot of wasted land here. In other words, I guess the whole project is like 5 acres, but that remaining 20 acres, is it just going to be brush and, you know, trees that are falling down? You know, what would be your plans to make the site look decent? I was talking to someone today who happens to work for the city, and what I see is Galoney Park. I'm not saying I'm looking for athletic fields here, but I see walking paths. Doesn't have to be hot top. I wouldn't want hot top. I'd want stone dust or something like that. Are you talking about meadowlands or something? And what I mean by that, you might have areas that you might only cut a couple times a year. But what I don't want to see is a project like this. All right, I think it would take away from it, that in 10 years, you know, everything is overgrown. You know, your oaks grow back, your pines and so forth like that. So what envision do you have to make this as attractive project as possible? And I guess go back to my original question, what is the difference between open space and green space, the way you guys handle it?
And Mr. Falk, I see you've got your hand up, so if you want to reply.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councilor Landers. And generally, we're referring to open space as land that's left in its natural state, and green space as land that's landscape. So the strip along the roadway we would view as green space, and the area to the back in the southwest parcel would be open space. To your question about how would we manage the property, first of all, we are proposing a special permit condition where we would grant a conservation restriction to the city for the southwest portion of the property, that landlocked parcel to the southwest. That would be subject to a conservation restriction. We've put forward money to study and potentially build walking trail along the Seward trunk line that would help expand public access to that area and to the conservation area. And then as a condition of our Conservation Commission order of conditions and also this special permit, we're going to be maintaining a meadow management plan within what is the riding ring. That'll be maintained as a meadow. We have a formal meadow management plan that's been reviewed and will be monitored by the Conservation Commission. So that interior of that riding ring will remain a meadow, which wouldn't ordinarily be the case, but provides great habitat in that area. All told, you know, the land isn't just being left alone, as might be the case if someone was just developing along the front and not caring about the back because they can't do anything with it. We've got opportunities for the city to have a conservation restriction, and you know, the terms of that will be, you know, approved by the state, and then the meadow management plan within the area that's for our residents along the walking trail.
See, okay, I read that and it sounds good. And I just like to know the feeling of some of my colleagues here. What I don't want to see, first of all, I don't want to see any other building take place there. I mean, down the line, I don't want someone to come in and try to expand something. But I guess what I'm curious, out of the 25 acres, you know, overall, what are the 25 acres going to look like? You know, the 5 front ones are going to be fine. I mean, I'm just curious now, that parking lot, that satellite parking lot is going away. What can you envision there, Brian, that would go where that parking lot was going to be? Just let the high grass grow, or let the brush go, or I mean, what could you envision there? That's kind of, you know, near Route 20. You know, what could you envision that you people would do there?
I can't. We don't have any current plans for it right now. It's a very small parcel, and even if we were to acquire the property just to the west, that property is mostly wet. So given the size of that parcel, there's not a lot that we can do with it. But there are no current plans right now. And we're certainly open to discussion with the committee in terms of ideas for that property.
Yeah. Well, okay, as I say, some of this looks more attractive because you do show what I'd say more lawn, more what I call green, all right? But I'm just afraid, I think of a couple examples we've had in town. We got given 10 acres between the middle school and the high school, all right? Now, they tell me there is a pathway from the high school to the middle school. I think it might be there, stone dust, but I understand it'll never be able to be used by anybody, handicapped. But we have that 10 acres that was given to us, and to me, it serves no value. And I think what I see here is on the other side of that sewage line there, after a while, that's just going to go back to the natural state. Now, I know people have talked that there's a lot of critters that live there. Well, there might be a few coyotes and a couple of deer, but, half a mile away, they can get down the reservoir. They will relocate. We had that out at Apex there. When we walked that land there, we saw a young doe and a couple other animals there, but they seek things out. So I guess I'd like to know what some of my colleagues feel, what you want the 25 acres to look like, as well as the 5 front acres. I mean, this is, right on Route 20. I gotta admit, there's some buildings on Route 20 that don't look that great, and they were built in the 30 or 40 years ago. But let's take this as an opportunity to have not only the 5 acres in front, but the whole parcel, look good. And I'm not looking for a green lawn everywhere, but there are different types of plantings you can do, meadows and so forth, and walking paths, or, I'd like to see, for the most part, the whole 25 acres look pretty good.
Councilor Landers, I think, and I could get corrected, I know we have Mr. DePercio on the line. He's not on conservation, but he's been involved at site plan. My understanding is the remaining acreage has so much wetlands that they would never be allowed to have anything built on them, and the desire from both conservation...
I don't want anything built on it. I want it to look good and be used.
But I think the decision of conservation and the state environmental protection was to let most of that land remain as it currently is. There would be a meadow closer to the building, but the rest of the land was supposed to stay natural. They weren't going to go in and clear cut. They weren't going to plant grass. They were going to let it stay wetlands. The path itself, I think we can have a discussion on. I know the land connecting around Apex and the land by the hotel on Forest Street, that's a stone dust path that we put into that special permit, but it is not maintained during the winter. So nobody can use it unless you're snowshoeing or there's enough snow to cross-country ski. So my guess is if we actually pave or stone dust this path, it would not be maintained in the winter, which would probably actually be better. You'd want people to be able to snowshoe or cross-country ski back into the woods. But those kinds of things, I think, are discussion, and I would greatly appreciate input from site plan and especially from Priscilla from conservation when we get to that point in the discussion.
That's a point,
so
Madam.
I'm going to let other people respond to both
Let
your
me just wrap it
comments
up. Let me just wrap it up. See, you're saying site plan, all right?
Yes.
I'm talking now about what people have talked to me about. All right? That's not my ward, but people know I'm quite familiar with that property there. And that's what people are wondering. Is it going to be just these 5 acres? And then, I mean, the place is a mess down there now. That used to be 40, 30, 20 years ago. Used to just look quite nice. I mean, that's what I think we have to decide here. Site plan. They don't run across the public the way we do. I talked to a guy today that lives in Helen Drive, and his son lives 2 houses down from him. He said, "Don, what's it gonna be like there?" So I think I want to get the feeling, and maybe nobody here or upstairs or remote, you know, what do you want this, one of the last parcels in Marlborough to look like? I mean, I'm not so sure we have to worry about taking care of the few wild animals. I mean, they will scatter, you know, once this project starts anyways, once you get the excavators in there and everything. So let's not leave it to site plan. What do we want this to look like? I asked a simple question. A parking lot that was going to be built for 33 cars, that's not wetland there, because you wouldn't build a parking lot, as we just agreed, on wetland. So what are we going to do with that? We're going to just let it, you know, sit there and have, you know, wild grass or wild flowers, or what are we going to do? I'd like to see this be attractive from as much of Route 20 as we can. And I don't think it's the site plan people. I think it's those of us that run across the public that wants this project to look good.
Well, you're right. We are the deciding factor, but I think we decide based on a lot of input from site plan. The fact that they are removing the parking lot could be an impact, but they don't have anything impervious going on there now, which I think actually is a plus for the site, not a deterrent on the site. We could talk about what they might do along Route 20 when we have further discussion. And I will comment, because of where I am and because of the way the cameras are set up, I can just barely see you, your desk. I can see Councilor Ossing and I can see the city clerk, but I can't see the councilors in the room, whether they're raising their hand. So if you want to speak, you're going to have to do just what you did, Councilor Landers.
That's why I did it, yes.
And announce that you would like to speak, and then hopefully you're all being cognizant of somebody currently speaking. I will make sure anybody that has comments gets to make them. So, Councilor Navin, Councilor Doucette, Councilor Wagner.
Chairman Roby, this is Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I can agree to disagree with Councilor Landers as far as having the property revert back to its natural state southeast of the Burke. I think that having that type of green space is something that, you know, I had within, when I grew up on the South Shore, I had a forest behind my house that went back for miles, and I consider it to be an asset to the community. It was a huge area. I think even this small space creates a peaceful area. The people who abut it are lucky to have that in their backyard. There may be critters in there, not, you know, there's deer and bear now in Marlborough, but there's also raccoons, skunks, you know, an assortment of little critters all over the place. Whether or not they call it home or not, they may be roaming around in that area. But I do have a couple of questions as far as the design. I agree completely that I'd like to get the views of the planning board. I also would like to get the views of the Conservation Commission on this, since the retention pond has changed. Specifically, the question I have is basically, where is the new retention pond? Can you show that? Can you explain to where that is on the map? That's one of either the architect or Falk.
We could just bring up slide 3, and then Alan and Major can walk us through that.
Bingo.
Does someone have papers near their microphone?
Okay, we can see slide 3.
Okay. Dave, can you walk us through that?
Yep. So basically, there's multiple surface basins shown on this conceptual drawing. We have one along the front there that's kind of obscured by the landscaping along Route 20. We have another one back on page left near the existing self-storage unit. Then we have another small one behind that same building and behind the garage. Small area, yep, right there. Then moving page right, we have a very large basin here, which would discharge to the wetlands to the rear of it. And then we have one more behind the third building on page right, sort of. So it's a much more kind of environmentally friendly design than the subsurface systems. And it's sort of a low intensity stormwater design.
And Councilor Doucette, that's the kind of detail that we don't have yet because they haven't gone and done the full plans that would delineate all of that kind of information and would go back to site plan for discussion and then get forwarded to us.
And
Yes,
as I
correct.
said,
These basins haven't been designed. They've been roughly sized out, but not perfectly designed yet. This is more of a conceptual level plan to make sure we're moving in the right direction before we make that full engineering design and resubmit it.
okay, understandable, but I think that that's something I'd like to get Conservation Commission involved in, specifically that area. But also, just for my own clarification, how many acres of development is there now, just as a ballpark?
Roughly, including the path down to the dog park in the back, the whole development is conservatively 4.8 acres, which leaves about 81.3%, give or take, open space of the total site area. So it's a very concentrated design with a lot of open space component.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And, overall, I thought you guys really did a good job, a great job, going back and, finding out, how to actually adapt this to the space. You guys took a good step here, definitely getting this done. And the only other thing that I'd like to see done is there was also a water issue in this area as well. So there is, if we can talk about some sort of work that can be done to remediate water availability within the area when this is under construction, as well as sewage, I think that would be important. So I'd put that as one of the conditions, additional at some point. So, but that can be brought up in the planning board.
Councilor Doucette, you keep saying planning board. This doesn't go to the planning board.
Not
It goes to
planning board.
site plan.
Site plan review, yeah.
Thank you. Is there any further question or discussion from you, Councilor Doucette?
No, that's it. Again, I think it's also important to get this to the Conservation Commission. Thank you.
All right. Any other councilors with questions that are on the voting committee?
Madam Chair, Councilor Wagner.
Councilor Wagner.
A few questions. First, I want to say that I do really appreciate, because there's a lot of care and concern about this land, and I was surprised at the level of response to what we had to say, and I'm really appreciative of this plan that you've come back with. And I just have a few questions and clarifications that I'd like to, and comments, I guess. The front area, I love that the buildings are pushed back more and that the vegetation plantings have been added there. I don't know. I'd like to know because I think a lot could be due there. For one, mitigating the carbon pollution from the cars, and then also sort of screening the area. So that was a big part of the concern, especially from constituents, was these giant buildings right up against the road. So moving them back and adding the vegetation there, I think, is an improvement. but it could also have a climate impact in that, I'm not an expert on the clean trees and plantings, but I'm wondering if that's a consideration. So it's not just, visually pleasing, but like thinking if that is I'm wondering if that's a consideration of what type of plantings go in, and certain ones are better for just the natural space there and really absorption of the carbon pollution. I don't know if that we're at that level of detail, but I was just curious.
I know Mr. Falk will probably answer, but I know when this is a site plan, Priscilla Ryder as conservation will make sure that of what type of plantings are in the plan, and will make sure that they are appropriate for our area, and she will add all kinds of comment as it gets into site plan. And I'm sorry, Mr. Falk, you were going to say something.
You took the words right out of my mouth, so I don't need to say anything, Madam Chair.
Okay, excellent, thank you. There was a few things I brought up in previous meetings that I brought them up, and I don't think there wasn't an answer really at the time. I didn't know if you looked into it, but I'd like to know about, still concerned about this my understanding is there's 2 oil tanks on the property, one that's buried, one above ground, and asbestos that's left over connected to the crematorium. So that's hazardous waste, and I mean, I know there's regulations for how that's removed, but I would like to be explicit to acknowledge that it's there, and that, because I don't see it didn't really turn up in any of the plans, and I think I'd like to make sure my understanding and reading through the documents that is in fact there, and I brought this up, and I'm wondering if you have any feedback on that.
Yeah, I mean, generally, they'll be removed, like you said, within the state regulations. So it's not something that's uncommon. It's actually very common, and we'll follow the regulations that we need to.
And there was Councilor Doucette mentioned something about water supply, water pressure, and in one of the documents, that was a previous comment too, there was a reference to, let me get it right. The DEP suggested that the Spoon Hill water storage tank should be improved to address water quality turnover issues. I had brought that up as a concern, and I'm wondering if there was any further information on that.
That's something we'll need to look into a little bit further.
Okay. Because I think that's really, before I'm ready to make a decision, these are some outstanding things that I know I brought in a previous meeting, and I would love to understand more about that since it was in the documentation we were provided. And question, when we talked about snow removal, and I know you understand that you can't be dumping it on the wetlands, obviously, or on any grassy areas. So in previous conversations, you had mentioned that you were going to put it in the area that was going to be the satellite parking lot, and now with that gone, it seems like, if this place really gets full, those parking spots are going to get full, and there's really no place to be putting snow on pavement, which would mean you could conceivably every snowstorm be trucking it away. Is this something that you've thought about in the planning, and would this present a problem?
It wouldn't present a problem. We'd have to revise our snow management plan, of course. But with the reduction in impervious, that's also a reduction in the amount of snow we have to remove. So I'm assuming that the plan would follow something similar to what we were doing before. We just have more space to work with now. And again, if it was an issue and parking became an issue, we would just haul it off, which is the common practice.
Okay.
And that's an explicit special permit condition now under the new draft. If we have a shortage of parking, we have to get the snow off site. Otherwise, we have a zoning problem.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Excellent. And then 2 more questions. One is, I wasn't 100%. It's hard to read the little. I just wanted to ask for clarification before there was a condition about the riparian zone. If I'm saying that right, this looks like this design? It's further away. The comment was the first 100 feet of the riparian zone. You'd agreed to restore, but now it looks like it's not even going to be disturbed, so you're not actually replicating wetland. Am I reading it wrong? Can you clarify that?
Dave Robinson, take that?
Yeah, I mean, if we're not disturbing wetlands, we're not subject to restoring them. But it is something that we can discuss, but
Well, no, my question is, I think I hear what you're saying, but my question was before, so at one point you were within that 100 feet when the bocce bought, when the 4 buildings are there and the bocce court, right? And then you took that out and it removed back. And now with this design, it looks like that's it's not an issue. And I just want to be sure, is that in fact true that you're actually even farther away from the 100 foot?
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. Yes, that's correct. Yes, we're further away from out of the 100 foot. Yes.
Okay, excellent. And then my last question is, with the reduction in the number of units, are you anticipating the price to change? You had said a 1-bedroom was going to be $1,900 a month and a 2-bedroom was $2,400 a month. Would those stay the same?
I'll defer to Mr. Moran for that. Yep.
Yeah, the rents are going to stay the same.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Mr. DePercio, I see you on. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any comments you'd like to offer on the Spoon Hill, or do you want to wait till it actually goes to site plan?
No, I can offer some comments on that. The short answer is that situation has been rectified. The Spoon Hill tank is on the eastern part of the city, which is generally lower in elevation, and it operates on a separate pressure zone than the rest of the city. And its flow into that part of the city is through a series of pressure reducing valves. And because of the way those valves operate, the level in the Spoon Hill tank, the tank wasn't filling and emptying the way that it should, so that you can keep the water in the tank fresh. We've rectified it through the use of a timer on one of the pressure reducing valves, so that's no longer an issue.
All right, thank you. Anybody else on the committee who has comments, questions?
Madam Chair, Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to start by saying thank you to the applicant. You folks certainly did hear a lot of the concerns, and did your best to reduce some impact to the land, and to not only the land itself, but on the impacts on our roads, which I certainly appreciate. I do still kind of have some concerns regarding greater overall impact to the area. However, I do look forward, as the chair suggested, that we get some additional feedback from the managers and from the site plan before we kind of continue that. But I do just want to go on record to say thank you for putting some effort into hearing the concerns, not only the councilors, but for the people who reached out to the councilors. So thank you very much.
All right, so I see that we do now have Councilor Perlman on. So Councilor Perlman or Councilor Oram, Councilor Ossing, any comments, questions from any of you?
Madam Chair, Councilor Perlman.
Councilor Perlman, thank you.
Thank you. I did have a question. I also want to echo the sentiments of appreciation for the reduction in the number of buildings and hearing all of the feedback from the council. I was a little confused with some of the open space in the back in terms of like what would eventually become in the public domain and owned by the city versus what would be owned by you all, in terms of the walking path, the dog park, and then the possibility of a public trail. I don't know if you could explain a little bit more of that piece.
Madam Chair, Brian Falk, I can attempt to. So the way we've drafted the special permit decision right now, the southwestern parcel, that landlocked parcel, would be subject to a conservation restriction. We'd still own the property, but the city would have a conservation restriction, which would prohibit any development and significantly limit what may be done with the property beyond being in its natural state. And if it's open to public access, most conservation restriction sites are. Where we were talking about a trail is that sewer trunk line, which is city owned. It's not actually an easement, it's city owned, which was something that was done 120 years ago with a lot of the city sewer lines. And so that we're talking about doing a walking trail over city property that would provide access to that conservation area. The inner area walking trail just behind the development parcel. As proposed now, that would remain owned by the applicant, but it's subject to a meadow management plan that's enforced by the conservation restrictions. So that interior area would be maintained a few times a year so that it would stay and maintain habitat for the flora and fauna that use that area right now. So again, what we have proposed right now isn't land to change hands, but the city to get a conservation restriction on that large parcel in the southwest portion, which it would still be in the name of the applicant, but effectively under city control, subject to the conservation restriction.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. So the southeastern portion is what you described that would be able to have that ability, but the southwestern would not have any sort of public access? Because I don't know if it seems like it could be nice if there was the ability to use some of that space with the trail being open to the public and or the dog park, but that you're saying is for private use.
Right now, that's intended for the use of the residents. It's essentially their backyard, their walking trail, and their dog park.
Okay, all right, thank you. I will look forward to sort of seeing more of the comments from site plan and conservation as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other counselors?
Madam Chair, that's Councilor Doucette. I just want to say a couple additional things.
All right, can you just let me make sure nobody else wants to say anything before I let you speak again?
Absolutely. That's why I delayed.
Chairperson Roby.
Councilor Oram.
Thank you, Chairperson. I first want to more or less reflect what was said by Councilor Landers. I think it's important that we find the best use of the conservation land as it relates to the citizens of our community, that they also get to enjoy some of that conservation land. And as other councilors have noted, this does have to go through our department heads. I'm very interested in seeing the Conservation Commission's review on this as well. And we go forward from there. And I'm also very concerned about traffic, as I noted before, on Route 20. Thank you.
Anybody else before I go back to Councilor Doucette? All right, Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. For building 300 and building 400, I would expect that there would have to be some sort of fire road access to the back, and the fire department will probably bring that up just to give you guys a heads up. One of the garages is probably going to be blocking the access to 300, so you guys may want to take that into account or just be aware of that. I think the other is if there's plans to actually put a path on top of the sewer burn, I still think that's a good idea. One of the options as far as that extra spot is to actually do parking for that walkway, so that way people can park there and do the walk. That might be an option to actually consider as we move forward on this. But again, overall, you guys really did a good job addressing a lot of the concerns that we have. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other councilors with questions or comments at this point?
Madam Chair.
Councilor Wagner.
One thing I forgot to mention, just for the record, on page 2, item 12, there's a statement here that says at the public hearing, 10 members of the public spoke in opposition to the use and 25 submitted written comments. The record of residents who provided their addresses is actually 143, which I've shared with council. And there was an additional 18 that didn't provide their addresses. So the 143 is at least the official number. And just for the record, there was a resident, Ms. Bovacanti, that started a petition that had 1,218 signatures on it. So that may not count because it doesn't include addresses, but it certainly was far more than 10. And I think that needs to be reflected in the record, that there was a lot of comment related to that. And just one final comment, just to remember, I would encourage my fellow councilors to look at some of the more recent understanding of environment and ecology. And although it's nice to have things look mowed and manicured, everything from the tiniest organism to the to mammals that roam the land, the ecology of a land is very important, and the impact on our climate right now. We have to understand how this all connects. So I'm appreciative of leaving the land is a natural state, having this large amount of land and having it left in its natural state, so that asset to the city is a matter of life and the air we breathe, and not everything needs to look like a golf course. So this extremes there, to keep that in mind, the value over aesthetics is really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you said that very well. All right, a couple of comments that I will make. First is the comments that Councilor Wagner just made on the public hearing, and I would...
Excuse me, Madam Chair, Councilor Landers was trying to make a comment.
All right, just a minute, Councilor Landers, I will get to you. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say anything, and I didn't see your hand, but
I did vote.
I think it's important that there be a distinction between what was actually submitted for the public hearing versus what's been submitted since then. And I know it's been a lot submitted since then. So I will, and I'm sure that Mr. Falk would want to work with the solicitor to make sure we have what was submitted for the public hearing and make sure that that's correct. The other thing, and I don't know if he's actually on here, Solicitor Grossfield, my understanding is this went to Conservation. Conservation has had their public hearing. They have their conditions. Some of that information then went to the ZBA, who also did a special permit for a variance that was required. I don't know that this has to go back to Conservation. Can Mr. Falk, or actually I don't see that Attorney Grossfield is on, but if he is, if he would jump in, or Mr. DePercio, if you have any sense, someone.
Madam Chair, this is Tom. I can try to speak for Priscilla. So she, as you know, she's part of the site plan review, and generally speaking, if there's a reduction in the impact to the resource areas, they wouldn't have to go back to Conservation, but that would be something Priscilla will be able to assess when she gets a good look at the plans and decide whether it warrants another review by the whole commission.
And would it have to be a referral by this body, or would Conservation just get it automatically?
She would make that determination that it warrants either a refiling or an amendment to the existing order. It wouldn't take an act by this body to do that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
All right, so Councilor Landers, you had comments you wanted to make?
Yeah, just I don't want to belabor the point, and I don't want to, get into an argument with Councilor Wagner. Fortunately, I talked to Priscilla Ryder this afternoon, but we didn't come to any conclusion. We just talked. Probably I've been out nature. I've been in the landscaping business for years. I think what we got to keep in mind, as I said earlier today, do we decide as a councilor? So there's one feels one way, and I know Councilor Wagner feels another way. So there's a split right there. But as a councilor, we want to decide what it's going to look like. All right, not the site review group. I mean, Priscilla will always have input. But, you're not talking about a city that has thousands and thousands of acres, of open space. Our land is precious. As I've said before on the council floor, we've gone looking to build a school and a senior center and this and that, and guess what? There isn't much land around. So I think it's nice to have something that looks quite natural, but it can look quite natural, but it can be managed. You can have a mixture, which they will do around the site. So the site isn't the problem for me, or some of the people I've talked to in that area, all right? What would happen, you do nothing on the other side of the trunk line there, all right? And do nothing, in 10 years, the vines will take over, kill the trees, and then what you'll do is have dead trees sticking up as you drive down Route 20. So as a council, we have to decide, do we want that to be a good-looking site the next 10, 20, 30 years? If you just let it go, all right, you'll end up with what I mentioned there. You're going to end up with a site that's not attractive. Let's make that area look good. It's not the 4.7 acres in front. They're going to make, because that's how you rent apartments. But this is our chance to take a good look. I'm not looking for lawn all over the place. Not looking for another Marlborough Country Club there. But I'd like to think that it would be right attractive. I mean, my point was, what are you going to do where the parking lot was going to be? That's kind of right out in front. You know, what are they going to do with that? Just let it be? Let high grass grow and with the pine trees, and so forth. So I think that's our decision as a councilor. So right now, Councilor Wagner's one way, I'm the other way. But what's the feeling of the council? And I'm not so sure. Site plan, they're the ones that don't have to talk to the residents. They're sitting in a meeting and they're making the decisions. Now, and certainly Priscilla is the one to make the right decisions on a lot of things. The type of plantings we do and the shrubs and so forth like that. I guess we can include Tom in there too. But let's take this as an opportunity to make this project, if we're going to have it. We haven't even talked some of the major problems with the project yet, like traffic and safety. But let it stick here. Let us decide what we want, and looking for input from the department heads. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Landers. I think unless there are any comments from anybody else, we've had, I think, the discussion that I hoped we would have today. I'm getting the sense from comments that I've heard that the next step would be to ask the applicant to work on new formal site plans that would then get sent to the site plan review committee for comments back to us. We can then set up another meeting to continue discussion on this. Does that seem to be the best way to move forward? My voting members?
Do you need a motion, Councilor? Chairman?
I don't think we need a motion. I think if the sense tonight was this is not going to cut it, I don't really care what they're doing. I would suggest to the applicant that they think seriously about their next steps. I'm not hearing that, so I think that what I'm hearing is that the council needs to hear information from the department heads that will help us as we make a final decision.
Then a motion to postpone?
We can have a motion. We didn't postpone when we let this lie in committee. I think it can just lie in committee like it did as we were waiting for them to bring back their proposed changes. So we'll wait for them to let us know. I know with the holidays coming up and the work that would be involved in getting the formal plans put together, it may be a while. Therefore, what I would appreciate would be a vote of this committee to extend the time limit to February 28th, 2021.
Motion to extend the time limit to February 28th, 2021.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion by the committee?
Councilor Ossing's raising his hand.
Madam
Councilor
Chair,
Ossing.
we can vote to extend it, but the applicant has to supply it. The vote really means nothing. The applicant has to submit that they want to change the extend the date.
Correct, and I've already talked to
He can- I
Attorney
mean-
Falk, and he is prepared to do that.
Yeah.
He agreed to the date of February 28th.
Yeah, so I think,
So no vote is needed.
well, as long as Attorney Falk agrees, and I'll let him speak.
Sure. So, Madam Chair, and as we've discussed, we're open to an extension, and based on the conversation tonight, unless someone waves their hand and tells me I'm completely wrong, I'm mirroring your comments. It sounds as though we're being told we're moving in the right direction, and it's worthwhile for us to further develop the plans and work with the site plan committee to flesh out these issues. That's a worthwhile enterprise, and that we're going in the right direction with this new concept plan. Assuming that's the case, and it sounds like it is, then we're okay with an extension to the end of February.
All right, and it's my understanding if we were actually in chambers, there would be a piece of paper that Karen would have prepared. We would both sign it. I think that can still happen with an agreement by the committee that it's done this way. She can prepare the paper. I can come in and sign it. I'm sure Attorney Falk can come down to City Hall or provide some sort of whatever it is that we can do nowadays with paperwork being signed online, or come into the chamber since City Hall is open. Does that work for everybody, and is that okay with you, Councillor Ossing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's not that it's okay with me, it's what needs to be done. So as long as you and Attorney Falk are online, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. All right, so it has been moved and seconded then that the committee extends the date to February 28th. I'm going to do a roll call vote just to confirm that. Councillor Landers?
Councilor Landers votes yes.
Councillor Doucette?
Councilor Doucette votes yes.
Councillor Wagner?
Councilor Wagner votes yes.
Councillor Navin?
Counselor Naven votes yes.
And Councillor Roby votes yes. All right, is there anything I have forgotten? Anything anybody else wants to say to wrap up?
Motion to
If
adjourn.
not, we will wait to hear back from you, Attorney Falk, and I think I heard a motion from Councillor Doucette.
To adjourn.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. I'm going to do another roll call vote. Councillor Navin.
Counselor Naven votes yes.
Councillor Landers.
Councilor Landers votes yes.
Councillor Wagner.
Councilor Wagner votes yes.
Councillor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette votes yes.
And Councillor Roby votes yes. That's 5-0. We are adjourned. It is 8:27. Thank you all for your time tonight, and good luck with the next step, and we will see you in site plan.
Thank you very much. Good night, folks.
Good night.
Thank you.